What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to my channel. My name is Tonibryanne, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing how our society has become extremely conservative in recent years. As we all know, social media is a huge component as to how society interacts and behaves today. With this information, there has been a clear increase of content creators and media glorifying the good old days. Those good old days being things of the past that we have eradicated over time to better our society. Things like traditional gender roles, feminism, racism, and so many other components. On TikTok, Instagram, and even YouTube, young women proudly label themselves to be tradwives, which is short for traditional wives, and they romanticize a 1950s style of domestic bliss. And we now even have a lot of celebrities and influencers promoting this modest fashion and early marriage as aspirational. At the same time, there is a clear boom in openly Christian content. You have the former party girls rebranding themselves as devout wives or modest women, all pushing the same exact message: a woman being a dutiful wife and a loving mother. It's almost as if this agenda is being pushed as women are choosing to date less, have children less, or even wait to have children. Our society seems to not like women claiming back their power. On the surface, these trends and ideas of thinking might seem like harmless aesthetic nostalgia or personal lifestyle choices. But history has shown us time and time again that culture and aesthetics often pave the way for politics and the way society thinks. In this video, we'll be discussing and exploring the resurgence of tradwife culture, modesty culture, and conservatism in today's society. And we'll be discussing how it intersects with a broader conservative shift and why these nostalgic ideas can be dangerous for women's rights and freedom. And how can I forget, even our lives. But you guys, before we get into today's video, you guys know I like to start off every video with a little bit of positivity. So let's first start off with the quote of the day. Today's quote of the day is, "I replace worry with the calm certainty everything always works out." Today's verse of the day is Isaiah chapter 26, verse 4, and it reads, "Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord himself is the rock eternal." Please be sure you guys are following me on all my social media platforms. I'm available on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well. I have obviously this main channel, so please be sure you guys subscribe. We're on the road to 300,000 subscribers. So the more you guys share and the more you guys support, we will reach that number even quicker. And with that continuous support, there will also be a giveaway. And I promise you guys, I'll be very generous with this giveaway. I'm just so grateful for this platform in general, but I want to make sure that you guys know for sure that I am. So please be sure to subscribe. I also am Tonibryanne TV on TikTok and Instagram. So if you guys want to support my main channel where I just post really cute looks, and I also post random thoughts throughout my day, which is on my TikTok, please go support that as well. If you guys want to see shortened clips and also be able to share that as well, I am on TikTok as Tonibryanne TV Clips, and I am on Instagram as TBTV Clips. I also have a podcast called The Decision Podcast, and it's all about how one choice can impact your entire life. If you're interested in being a guest on that podcast, we have over 16,000 followers on TikTok and over 10,000 subscribers on YouTube in under 6 months. It is growing rapidly, with the highest viewed video having over 300,000 views. So if you guys want to share your story, promote a product, whichever from your story, that would be an amazing platform for you to do so on. So the Google form sheet in order to be a guest on that podcast will be linked down below as well. And if you guys just want to listen to it, it's a really phenomenal podcast. I'm going to link that down below too, so you guys can go ahead and check it out. And then lastly, Tonibryanne TV is officially a podcast too. So if you guys want to listen to me versus watching me because you're on the go, you're washing dishes, you're doing your laundry, or you just don't want to see my beautiful face, I'm available on all audio streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible. So please be sure to support me on those avenues as well. And yeah, I think that is everything that I need to say before we get into today's video. This is going to be maybe a hard watch, so I'm just giving that as a disclaimer now. But without further ado, you guys, let's get straight into today's video. Taking you in this moment. Let's get into the rise of the tradwife aesthetic on social media. Scroll through TikTok today, and I promise you will probably stumble upon videos tagged #tradwife. #tradwife garnered over 96 million views by late 2022, and it has since climbed to 175 million views across Instagram and TikTok. This means the engagement with #tradwife has nearly doubled in under 3 years. This shows a significant surge on how influential the tradwife movement has become. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is the tradwife movement? So as I stated earlier, tradwife is short for traditional wife. And by definition, a traditional wife is a married woman who chooses to embrace traditional femininity and gender roles, focusing on homemaking, domestic duties, and supporting her husband, often while he serves as the primary breadwinner. And the thing about traditional wives is, due to it being a kind of outdated idea and role, a lot of these women dress like 50 to 75 years ago. Think of these women content creators in vintage style dresses, cheerfully cooking, cleaning, caring for their children, and tending to their husband in immaculately kept homes. Now, the tradwife movement took off online around 2020. This was during the pandemic, as some women sought comfort in domestic routines. So when you really think about this movement, a lot of women were either losing their jobs, not able to be in school, or wanting and seeking to be content creators, and they found comfort in doing these domestic roles that they were doing in the house because they had nothing else to do. We were literally trapped in our homes for about 2 years, which is crazy, which led you to only be able to make content in the house that wouldn't be judged. And with being domesticated, some people saw that working just really wasn't for them, so they started having these ideas that they need to be a tradwife in order to not have a job. So obviously this is not all the women that were affected by the pandemic, but the women that chose to be traditional wives, they genuinely believed that life was better when women were adhering to traditional gender roles. And they made that clear to their audience that was watching and supporting them. And when they were talking about these traditional gender roles, they meant the husband works outside the home and the wife stays home to be a homemaker. And if you don't know what a homemaker is literally what the definition is. Someone that is doing all the domestic needs at home in order to keep the home functioning. So that's cleaning, cooking, childcare, everything that involves keeping and sustaining a home. Contrary to the modern working woman's hustle and burnout, one prominent TikToker that really pushed the tradwife aesthetic is a woman by the name of Esty Williams. She literally romanticizes the entire concept of the 1950s, and she describes tradwives as women who choose to live a more traditional life with ultra-traditional gender roles.
If you are not familiar with the term tradwife, it is a woman who chooses to live a more traditional life with ultra-traditional gender roles. So the man goes outside the house, works, provides for the family. The woman stays home and she's the homemaker. She takes care of the home and the children if there are any. And we believe our place, specifically us as individuals, believe our purpose is to be homemakers.
In her own words, she said this in quote, "I chose the trad lifestyle because I believe that women have drifted far from our roots. Being a wife, mom, making delicious home-cooked meals for my family, and keeping up a warm, inviting home is what truly spoke to me." Esty, who is just 26 years old with these ideologies, she makes content describing homemaking as fun and how you can wear makeup and cute house dresses even when you're doing chores. Her posts often have captions like romanticizing her life as a #housewife, which is her literally presenting domestic labor as an almost fairy tale-like way of life rather than what it truly is, work. Esty, who might I say is not a mother herself, I don't know if she's struggling to have children, but she's been on the internet for years and she's been married to her husband for years now and she's still not a mother, which I'm shocked because I feel as if a lot of tradwives will try and get pregnant as quick as possible, but maybe she's struggling to conceive, so I don't want to place judgment on that. But I say this all to say, Esty, who is not a mother, believes that many mothers are burned out from juggling jobs and home responsibilities. And she feels that returning to home-based roles can be a source of fulfillment for women. Now, the issue that I have with content creators like Esty is that they don't show the reality of being a tradwife. A lot of their tradwife content heavily glosses over the reality of what a stay-at-home mom really deals with every single day. They almost romanticize being a stay-at-home mom or being a homemaker. But at the end of the day, like I stated earlier, that is still a job, it is still work, and it's a job that you do not get paid back for. The videos that they are creating are literally meant to set women back by essentially implying women should solve work-life stress and burnout by dropping their careers and fully financially depending on a man. What's being sold is a fantasy, the cheerful 1950s housewife life. Before we get deeper into this, I want to correct myself because I just went on Esti's Instagram page and she is indeed currently pregnant with a little girl, so she is having a child. But regardless, my point still stands. Women like Esti are promoting this kind of whimsical life of being a housewife when the housewives in the 1950s were fighting for their lives every single day. And I also wanted to be clear that a lot of these women are influencers at the end of the day. So are they really traditional housewives? Influencers make a very pretty penny in some cases, and I'm sure those brand deals they're getting and all the free cribs and free toys for their babies definitely compensates a lot more than what a traditional housewife has to deal with and what they have to pay for.
Your husband is such a great provider, and you've totally cracked the code on how to live well as a woman because he pays all the bills and feminism ruined everything for us. Then why does it say paid partnership at the bottom of your post?
Being a traditional housewife should not and is not a glamorized reality. To reiterate, the housewives in the actual 1950s were literally fighting for their lives every day and going through hell. But we're gonna dig into that a little bit deeper later on in this video. Many tradwife influencers carefully are curating this retro look. Think about the flowery aprons, pinup curls, sundresses, full beat face while baking bread from scratch, tending gardens, and taking care of their well-behaved children. One creator that definitely adheres to this exact lifestyle is Nara Smith. Though Nara Smith and her husband do not like to claim to be pushing the tradwife narrative because they feel as if they don't fit into the tradwife box, but Nara Smith definitely pushes this. She is a major contributor to the tradwife aesthetic blowing up, especially within the past 2 years. She went viral from creating these made from scratch cooking videos where she's kneading dough, brewing butter, making jam, creating toothpaste, doing all the things that we know what a traditional homemaker does. But the thing is, she's doing all of this while dressed up in runway level designer looks, and she's whisper talking through every step. It literally contributes and sells the fairy tale housewife fantasy.
After Lucky's 40-hour road trip, we're finally back in Connecticut. And one thing I was really excited to do was go back to Stu Leonard's. This grocery store always feels like the Disneyland of grocery stores, especially for kids. I only wanted some soft serve because it was so good, but we ended up walking through the store and actually picking up some groceries. I don't know what it is, but the produce section of every grocery store is my favorite part. We stocked up on some vegetables, got some peaches. We always love to try apple cider wherever we go. I've never seen purple sweet potatoes this big, so I got one of those for whimsy. Made sure Lucky got his asparagus for the next few days. We have these little displays all throughout the store, and the kids needed to stop at every single one. And on our way out, I needed a watermelon. I never know how to pick a good one, so it's always a gamble. And at this point, our cart was stacked to the max, so we couldn't actually buy anything else. But one thing I couldn't leave without was my soft serve ice cream. That was divine.
Mind you, she's also a mother of 3, soon to be 4 at just 24 years old. Well, she's not 24 yet, but she will be 24 in less than a month. But she will have 4 under 4 at 24. Tell me that's not literally what tradwife pushes.
Everything that Nara Smith does in her videos is everything that the patriarchy has taught us to do as women. Don't get me wrong, I love Nara Smith. I watch her videos. I love that she makes food from scratch. It's absolutely amazing that she does that. But we also got to understand that the content that she is creating is tradwife content. She is selling you this lifestyle that is not attainable to most women. It's this carefully curated look on what motherhood is. She's able to cook meals that take up to 8 hours for her 2 toddlers while also pregnant. House is always cleaned, always dressed up to the nines. This is not the reality for most mothers. Capitalism don't give most mothers the chance to even spend a lot of time with their children, let alone even be able to cook things from scratch for their children. What Nara Smith is selling is a lifestyle, a look, a domestic lifestyle that the patriarchy has taught women to portray themselves in. Nothing that Nara Smith is doing is feminism. I do love her content. I watch her content all the time. This is not a bash at Nara Smith at all. I'm just saying that her content is catered to and also in the category of tradwife content, and you cannot deny it.
Despite going viral within the tradwife community, Nara has strongly pushed back against the label. She called it reductive and said things like, in quote, "I don't understand where that came from. I'm a working mom," end quote. But a lot of people can clearly see that her aesthetic with her retro kitchen, couture looks, and those hushed ASMR techniques perfectly embodies the tradwife vibe. And she also is apparently friends with a very well-known tradwife. The creator Hannah Nealman, who runs the page Ballerina Farm, strongly pushes the entire tradwife aesthetic. And I even did a video on her, which I actually ended up deleting. I don't even know why I deleted the video, but it's not there anymore. I did a full video on Ballerina Farm, but her husband literally lets her do everything, and she has so many children. Hannah's content is total cottagecore meets old-time homemaker vibes. You see in her videos, she's gardening, cooking from scratch in vintage dresses, surrounded by animals, and her 8 kids. Yes, 8 kids on a Utah farm. It seems Hannah has never not been pregnant, and she gave up her dreams of being a ballerina in order to be a tradwife. Then of course we have the way her husband treats her, allegedly. People have pointed out several clips where he comes off as controlling or dismissive, like the one where she's literally on stage at a Mrs. America competition and he made her continue performing until her water broke, or the fact that he often interrupts her in interviews or finishes her sentences or makes decisions for her in her videos.
Okay, this is by far the #1 question that we've gotten the most of.
How many kids we're going to have? Well, I don't know. We don't really have a number. We're just kind of going for it.
Or when on her birthday last year, he gifted her an egg apron when she's been saying over and over again she wanted to go on vacation to, I believe, Greece.
Okay, it was my birthday present from Daniel. Hoping their tickets to Greece.
Where's it from?
I don't know, the boys took it off.
I took it off.
It's from Ukraine.
So, plane tickets? Ooh, a hat I can wear in Greece.
It's not a hat.
It's not.
Oh, my egg apron!
Eggs in it.
Great, then you can gather eggs.
So
See, I
cute. It's
took it.
really cute. It's a
Yeah.
cute one.
That's the best. You're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
Not for a long time.
But of course, when the Sunday Times labels her as a tradwife because that is the type of content she's displaying, she says that they're attacking her family and she doesn't know where this idea of her being a tradwife comes from. When in all actuality, we're seeing the true behind the scenes of what it's like to be a tradwife, but she doesn't want to show that. She wants us to see the picturesque component of being a tradwife when we know being a tradwife comes with women having to suppress themselves and their needs.
The story starts on a weird note because even Hannah Nealman, who is behind Ballerina Farms, telling the story of how she met her husband was already deranged. She said that they met and she didn't really want to go on a date with him. And then 6 months later, she was going to be on a flight and she told him, like, yeah, I'm flying to New York on this day, whatever. And he goes, that's so crazy. We're on the same flight. And she was like, oh my God, that's wild. And they were sitting right next to each other. Then it turns out his dad owns the airline and he had pulled strings to make sure he was on her flight and sitting directly next to her. They tell this like it's a meet cute. Already a little bit weird. Whatever. So then they get to New York. She's like, I want to date for at least a year so I can finish school before I get married. He says, no, that's not going to work. So a month later, they're engaged. 2 months later, they're married. And 3 months after that, she's pregnant. And she literally said that she didn't want to be pregnant because she knew she would have to sacrifice her entire dancing career. She was the only Juilliard graduate in modern history to be pregnant at graduation. And then she's talking about like the sacrifices they made. And the journalist's like, oh, what sacrifices did Daniel make? And she's like, his career. And then Daniel's like, but actually this is always like moving to bumfuck Utah and like living on this like ranch is actually like always exactly what I wanted to do. And so the journalist's kind of like, huh, all right. And it just gets weirder and weirder. There's so much else to like talk about here. Like she says that they're co-CEOs, but she has no nanny because he doesn't want that. She has no childcare because he doesn't want that. So she does all the cooking, like everything by herself for 8 kids. And they also like are very Mormon and they're a lot more open about their Mormon views in private in the conversation with this journalist than they are in public. But they talked about how like, of course they don't believe in, you know. And so they have babies like unplanned, like whenever that happens. And so she's had 8 kids so far, which is crazy. And he talks about how she gets so exhausted that she faints sometimes because she's dealing with these 8 kids and now this entire like influencer career in addition to the whole like farm family situation that they have going on. And then the last thing that was like the saddest part to me is she talks all the time about how she gets all her births completely natural, like no pain meds, like no epidural. And then she says to the journalist, she's like, well, I did have one epidural one time with Martha because she was a 10-pound baby and Daniel wasn't there. And the journalist was like, oh, how was that? And she was like, it was really great. Like, that's so, it's sad. It's actually just sad. It's so sad. I know she thinks she's like girl bossing and happy, I think, but also like clearly she's so exhausted. Clearly this is not like what she wanted to be. She gave up her dreams of Juilliard and now she just like has 8 kids and like is exhausted all the time and is fainting. I don't know. It just makes me, I feel sad for her. I feel sad for her.
And the thing is, Hannah might genuinely really love her life, and so could Nara Smith or even Essie. But the issue at hand is the image still reinforces this idea that a good woman is quiet, compliant, never complains no matter how unhappy or uncertain they are about something. That's exactly the tradwife aesthetic, even if these women do not want to classify themselves as such. Another extremely well-known tradwife creator by the name of Gwen the Milkmaid, she even combines a Little House on the Prairie vibe with Bible quotes. Now, what's interesting with her is that she went from being an OnlyFans model to a God-fearing tradwife, frolicking in sundresses and pushing the narrative that we need to take care of our husbands and make him food all the time. Now, she hasn't posted in quite a while, so I hope she's okay, but she is one example of what we're about to get to in just a second. Some of these tradwife creators are explicitly bringing back and promoting the past. Now, I also want to note and say that it is very important to mention that not all women showcasing homemaking online are trying to push the tradwife label or narrative, or any extreme beliefs that they may have. Many just enjoy sharing cooking, decorating, or cleaning and that soft life content. But the tradwife subculture is distinct in that it frames domestic life in explicitly ideological terms. These influencers aren't just saying, oh my god, I like to make bread, or oh my god, I love to stay at home with my children. They often are just heavily suggesting that society was way better when women stayed home and men led, and that women should reclaim that arrangement today. And in a lot of cases, religion and wifely submission and wifely duties are part of the package. They come all in one. To them, these aren't just political ideas. Instead, it's just God's natural design. And with that, I want to make it clear, a lot of these tradwife influencers are openly fundamentalist Christian, where they're preaching that a wife's role is to submit to her husband as the head of the household. Now, while I agree with this to a certain extent, they insist that when a woman submits to her husband doesn't mean that that said woman is inferior, just that genders have natural roles as God intended. However, the way that they behave and the way that they act shows the complete opposite of that. But now let's get into fashion and how being modest has conservatism messaging. In the fashion world, modesty and vintage styles are making a comeback right now. For instance, the cottagecore trend, which is popular among Gen Z on TikTok, romanticizes rural old-fashioned living, which includes prairie-style dresses, bonnets, and all of those things. I'm sure you guys have seen an influx in long dresses like the milkmaid dresses, more florals. A lot of women are trying to dress more feminine and more cottagecore vintage-like. So while cottagecore isn't inherently political, it does emphasize on an old-time domestic simplicity that interlocks with tradwife aesthetics. And this is similar to the concept of quiet luxury and more covered up styles. These have cycled back into vogue, which is contrasting sharply with the overtly sexy trends of the early 2000s and even the 2010s. I mean, let's talk about the Pretty Little Thing rebrand. So if you guys do not know what Pretty Little Thing is, Pretty Little Thing is a very popular online fashion brand. They were known for almost a decade for having party wear and sexy clothing, but just recently they did a very stark rebrand with muted, modest, and conservative clothing. All of their clothes are basically covered up completely from head to toe, and they don't have any individualism or personality. It just goes with the rest of the world seemingly losing its flavor. It's like everybody's getting boring and modest and mute. There is a clear pushing of conservatism and modesty, and fashion is showing that clearly. Look at these girls that do Get Ready With Me. They all dress the exact same. And we are seeing the continued pushing of the long dresses, the femininity, the turtlenecks. I guess I'm fitting into it right now, but a lot of women are pushing that. And I've seen this a lot with Christian conservative fashion influencers. They're gaining a lot of traction online. I mean, Christian influencers in general are getting a lot of traction online. It's like once a woman hits 25 years old, she ends up being this holy, fully devout Christian woman that she wasn't just 4 or 5 years ago. And these Christian influencers are pushing modest clothing, both fashionably and faith aligned. I mean, just think about the rise of the clean girl aesthetic. It leans on neutral tones, covered up silhouettes, and a polished, subdued presentation that aligns perfectly with conservative messaging about being restrained, but they do so very subtly. You might think, oh, I'm just getting older and I want to be more modest. But no, a lot of the times it has to do with the fact that our world is going down a very conservative route, which gets perfectly into my next talking point, which may ruffle some feathers because it did when I did a whole video on this, but I call this From Hot Girl to Holiness, the Christian influencer boom. So I did a video almost a year ago talking about the mean girl Christian aesthetic, and I felt as if a lot of Christians were going online judging women who didn't adhere to their values. And it wasn't just about them pushing loving Jesus and becoming a productive member in society and going to church. No, they were publicly shaming and treating women like crap. Now, whether y'all say that's how God intended it, because a lot of y'all were saying that, I personally don't agree with that message, and that's okay. We can have separate beliefs, but I wholeheartedly believe with the pushing of conservatism, that also comes the rise of Christian content creators on social media platforms. It's almost a trope at this point, which I also discussed in that video that I had about the mean girl Christian influencers, which is when an Instagram model or a lifestyle vlogger who may have had a personal crisis or was canceled all of a sudden finds Jesus and rebrands as a modest church-going woman. I mean, we literally just saw this with, what was her name? Hannah from season 6 of Love Island, who got canceled because she was arrested. And within that arrest, because at first people were like, oh, maybe she just had a drunk night, she was called out for saying very racist things towards Black women. When she finally came back online, now all of a sudden she's this devout Christian woman who got baptized. Yes, it's beautiful. It's a great thing to see, but I'm gonna keep it real. And one thing about me, y'all get mad at me for this because I do sugarcoat some things because I don't want people to be upset at me sometimes. Because when you say your overt truth, people don't like that and they'll call you names. Like when y'all were being mean to me about that Christian influencer video, I was about to like never talk about Christianity again because y'all were calling me a fake Christian, a lukewarm Christian, and it like really hurt my feelings. But I'm gonna be unapologetically myself, okay? I'm gonna say what the heck I want to say. And my point is, a lot of people use Christianity as a way to boost themselves and to make themselves not look like a bad person. Because a lot of Christians push that you can do messed up things, but as long as you pray about it and ask for forgiveness, you're automatically forgiven. Now, I am Christian and I wholeheartedly believe that we all make mistakes and that we should not be held against a mistake that we made in our lives. However, let's be clear, a lot of times these Instagram models and these other people that want to rebrand or want a husband, they're doing so because of alternate reasons and not because they just want to have a closer relationship with God. One major example of this is a creator by the name of Brittany Dawn Davis. So Brittany was once a fitness influencer with over 1 million followers, but she shifted around 2020, convenient, right? To serving up daily Bible verses, modest fashion tips, and messages about saving sex for marriage. Now, once again, this is not problematic at all, okay? Y'all know I do verse of the day, I'm all for it. But it shows with tradwife content being pushed in 2020 and a lot of tradwife content creators being tied to Christianity, and not just like a regular Christian, the ones that are more extreme Christians who push a lot of conservative values led a lot of women to make this shift because they either felt judged or felt like they had to adapt with times with Christian influencing being on the rise. Like Brittany literally went from posting workout routines and crop tops to hosting religious women's retreats where she literally baptizes fans in a horse trough. It just gives very performative, like I just can't sometimes. At her events, she has young women weeping and praying as they embrace this new vision of womanhood centered on faith and purity. And of course, you have Brittany selling her version of Christianity and plenty of branded merch for an eager audience. So they are monetizing off of their Christianity that they love so much. Brittany's story can very well be labeled as connecting to the cancel to conservative pipeline. And to me, the cancel to influencer pipeline is when influencers face backlash or burnout. They will sometimes pivot to the Christian community because the Christian community is typically very giving, they're accepting, and they want you in it. And in Brittany's case, why she fits into this trope so perfectly is because she was sued by the Texas Attorney General for alleged fraud in her fitness coaching business. And she publicly embraced being wildly in love with Jesus and began marketing herself as a faith mentor instead of just taking accountability. And it worked because once again, these conservative right-wing Christians are always willing and open to accepting someone else that wants to join into their community.
I just finished filming a home workout for you guys.
By 2014, Brittany Dawn Davis had become a social media fitness influencer.
Kind of resonated with me just because it's something I've dealt with in my past.
Corey Reale had just started using Instagram and decided to buy Davis's fitness and nutrition plan.
I gained between 8 to 9 pounds that first week, which is detrimental to somebody who has battled eating disorders.
Despite a promise for personal coaching, Davis replied to Reale's concerns with generic affirmations.
I started to feel those red flags pop up, and I just had to literally make the decision. It's I'm done.
Last year, the Texas AG's office sued Davis for deceptive business practices, asking for up to $1 million, claiming she sold plans without personalizing them and even charged shipping fees for digital plans.
I'm sorry for anyone that feels hurt or scammed.
The case has now been settled, with Davis agreeing to pay $400,000. Another $130,000 can be added on if she violates the agreement, which bans her from selling personal plans without providing coaching and claiming to have special eating disorder knowledge.
I believe I read that 4 times just to make sure I was reading what I was reading.
Reale says years later, it feels like there's finally accountability.
I'm not trying to get my $90 back. It was never about the money for me.
Davis, who didn't respond to a request for comment, has to close her business, which she's already pivoted to spiritual content.
Fitness and health are no longer my identity. My identity is in Christ.
She's now selling Christian retreats for up to $300.
Be cautious, honestly, because a scammer is a scammer is a scammer.
She maintained and even grew her online following by tapping into the enormous Christian influencer market. And now platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram are overwhelmingly overtook by young women preaching traditional biblical roles. Think about the 22-year-old mom and wife you see wearing the long prairie dresses, dressing very modest on baby number 3 in under 2 years. Or the woman that has 1,012 children and keeps getting pregnant back to back to back while neglecting her other children that need her just as much. Sorry, y'all, after 4 kids, you gotta wrap it up. Because in my personal opinion, you cannot be a very good parent to each child without neglecting at least one when you get past 4. And 4 is being generous. I'll maybe give you 5. But I feel like 5, them 2 kids in the middle will end up having to take care of each other. But that's just my opinion. And we have people that I discussed in prior videos like Amani Talks, who went from a bottle girl in Atlanta, Georgia to being this modest woman that discusses being Christian and how she no longer drinks, she no longer goes out. I believe she's abstaining herself from sex, and I'm all for it. That's good for you. But the way that she discusses and talks about becoming a Christian or how women should behave comes off very judgmental. It's like, girl, you had your fun. Let other people have their fun. But in her head, she's like, well, I'm saving you. But to me, it feels as if a lot of these creators are shifting into being these Christian content creators because they're, 1, trying to find a husband. 2, they see the Christian influencer market is booming and that a lot of people that watch Christian influencers are willing to support and send that coin to support that Christian influencer. Or 3, they let society's conservative push take over what they believe is good Christian values. The pushing of modest fashion hauls, showing how to look cute without showing skin, or sharing recipes for wholesome family dinners, or vlogging about their engagements and church weddings with fairy tale-like enthusiasm. It just shows the packaging of conservative Christianity in the relatable language of a millennial or Gen Z influencer. And all of this content is making traditional values go viral. I mean, literally, marriage content is on the horizon. Everybody's posting wedding content. Everybody's posting their engagement. They're going ring shopping. They're having the engagement parties, the bachelorette parties, but make the bachelorette party modest. Make sure you're having a dry wedding. All of these things are becoming content, and it's being pushed and it's being normalized to the masses. And the thing about these women is that they do it very strategically. They look beautiful and they seem to be relatable and maybe even a little witty where you don't even realize that they're pushing these conservative values on you. So it's easy to digest and take in without even and knowing that you're doing so. And this surge has a significant cultural impact, as I stated prior. Pew Research surveys shows Americans remain religious overall, but younger generations are less affiliated with formal religion than older ones. Yet it's interesting because on social media, one could definitely get the impression that Gen Z is actually undergoing a religious revival. In fact, some data actually suggest a polarizing trend. Young women are seen to be broadly very progressive, whereas young men are trending to be more conservative, including in religious views.
Gen Z men are flocking to the church? Why are we surprised? Be so for real. Sure, you've seen an article or a video about this somewhere that Gen Z men are indeed much more religious and conservative than their female counterparts, specifically white Gen Z men. Do you know that there's a strong correlation between perceived victimhood, so essentially thinking you're the victim even when you're not, and being an evangelical Christian? The strongest that correlation is for 19-year-old young men. American evangelical Christianity does is promises a spot in the social hierarchy for those young men. I saw another video that said once women start to overtake men in a certain sector or area or job or whatever, it all of a sudden loses its value. Do you know the one place where women are not going to overtake men? It's going to be American evangelical Christianity, the birthplace of the true evil, Christian nationalism. Churches that really hold on to those traditional values, traditional gender norms will never, ever let a woman be in charge.
Influencers like these Christian influencers attract both young women who earnestly resonate with the lifestyle and also young men who see it as a validation of their own conservative beliefs about women's roles. And this one Newsweek headline put it perfectly. The headline stated, "The future of conservatism is entirely dependent on the next generation of young women." Young female influencers are increasingly the ones carrying the torch for those traditionalist ideologies. So they continue pushing that, most likely conservatism is going to be more and more promoted. And right now, the new pressure on women is getting married young and starting to have babies. Because if you guys have not seen recently, the birth rates have dropped drastically, and the age for women to have kids now has dropped significantly too. And that's taking me back to the marriage content going viral and getting bigger. Like I said, if you've been on TikTok, Instagram, or even YouTube lately, you've probably noticed this massive wave of marriage and wedding content. It is literally everywhere. Okay, everybody is just getting married, it seems like. You have the proposal videos, you have the engagement videos, all this content. You have the wedding videos, the honeymoon videos. Then you see this young 21-year-old couple getting married, and they're not just getting married, they're getting married very, very luxuriously. Because a lot of these conservative couples have a lot of money on. However, no one's thinking of it like that because they're like, oh my God, this is goals. I mean, look at the comment section. I can't wait to get married. When will it be my turn? This is goals. All these things, when we all know weddings are hella expensive, especially in today's economy. But a lot of these young girls aren't thinking about the money. They just see the beautiful wedding. They see what they assume to be love, though this couple probably met 2 months ago and got married 3 months later. And trust, I love a good wedding video just as much as the next person does. But this is not just about pretty dresses and first dances and finding the one. No, it is so much deeper than that than y'all think. It's literally part of the bigger vibe shift where settling down young is being sold as the ultimate life path and vision. Suddenly, being 22 and a housewife isn't looked down upon like you're rushing life. It's now branded as aspirational. It's the right thing. Almost like you're getting ahead of the curve because there isn't much out there past 25. And these creators are straight up encouraging this lifestyle too. Some of them are literally questioning why women are waiting until their 30s to get married or have kids. They're like, why wait until your 30s when you can marry young, grow together, and have more years with your kids? That's the pitch they sell, as if being married and having kids isn't one of the hardest things you'll ever do in life. Not saying that having kids and having a husband isn't a blessing, but it's a lot of work that goes into it. And this selling point works perfectly because wedding content already has this built-in fairy tale quality. And don't get me into the mommy vloggers who are pushing this stuff too. After the wedding, they're now getting pregnant, okay? And you just see this cute little chunky baby. You're like, oh my God, the babies are so cute. And then a lot of these content creators get paid the more children they have. Let's really clock that, okay? Because every time they're pregnant again, every time they have a pregnancy announcement, those views go right back up because people want to see the new baby. They want to know what the new baby's gender is. They want to know what the baby's name is. They want to see the nursery. They want to see the crib. They want to see all of these things. But these babies turn into full-grown human beings. These babies aren't just props. These babies aren't just content. But with these tradwife creators and these even Christian creators that are pushing these conservative values, it is being pushed as such, and these women, let's call them young women who are 20, 21 years old, ended up in a lifestyle that was promoted to them that they didn't even really want. They push getting married young, staying modest, and starting your family as soon as possible. Take someone like Carissa Collins, for example. She is this Christian mommy vlogger with 11 children, okay? This woman stays pregnant. She's basically internet famous for being super fertile and showing all of her mixed babies. I'm gonna say that much. She's very excited about her mixed babies and how they all look so different when they come out. She'll tell women, trust God with your womb, and proudly show off her giant family and recite biblical quotes about being fruitful. And this isn't just cute family vlog content, okay? This is ideological. She's openly preaching that having as many kids as possible with no birth control is the godly way. But here's where it gets absolutely scary when you're pushing a narrative as such. So earlier this year, Carissa made headlines after having a miscarriage, unfortunately. This was going to be baby number 12. Mind you, her eldest is, I believe, 15 years old, and she's had, I believe, one other miscarriage, one or two others, and that just shows she's basically been pregnant for 15 years straight. So after this said miscarriage, her most recent one, instead of her having a simple medical procedure to remove the non-viable pregnancy, she chose to let it pass naturally because she felt that intervening would be going against God. Are you kidding me? Meanwhile, she's posting videos of her kids hitting her belly while she's carrying this non-viable fetus, and people were absolutely horrified.
So the lady who has 11 children and wanted a 12th child has posted an update video where she said she ended up losing the baby. And so she's not getting the baby removed. She's going to wait till it expels from her body. And she's weeks out now that this baby has not been viable, not alive. It's not heartbeat, no heartbeat. She's not having surgery. She posted a video yesterday of her children, ages, I don't know, baby to older, hitting her stomach. There's a fetus in there that is no longer viable. And she is having her children, and she looks pregnant. Hair hit her belly because it's just flub. And it's like pictures, it's a video of her children hitting her belly, laughing. And this is a woman of God. This is a Christian woman.
It turned into this viral debate about how far these beliefs can push women into risking their own lives, because keeping a dead fetus into your womb can literally kill you. And that is the dark side of this trend where these trad wives and these Christian influencers, I want to just say it's not Christian influencers, I'm going to say extreme Christian influencers, push these very, very harmful things. And you know how dangerous she is to push that. Like, I don't believe in removing this baby out of my uterus. I want this baby to pass naturally. So other women that are like, wait, but I believe in God. So am I bad if I go to a doctor and get this fetus removed? And now they're keeping this baby inside of them, and now they're getting sick and possibly dying because of this. That is how harmful these Christian and modest creators can be. And the constant pushing of, you're in your early 20s and you're still not married and you still didn't start your family, you're behind. And that message can slide really quickly from being a choice to being a duty. Suddenly, the women who prioritize school, careers, or even just themselves get painted as being selfish or broken. I mean, the amount of women that are child-free by choice get called selfish all the time.
I'm a 30-year-old woman who does not have children. Gasp. I don't want children. I am so perfectly happy, I promise. The other day, I was at a photo shoot full of other women, mothers, unbeknownst to me. Love that for them. Really, no judgment. Do you. We need you, in fact. But there was like a mean girl situation going on that I had never experienced before. They were all gathered amongst themselves, talking about how selfish our generation of women are who've decided to not have children, and how we don't have purpose, and how we will never experience love. They were going in, and I'm just sitting over there drinking my cup of whiskey, minding my own business, crickets, super awkward, because I knew that eventually, hopefully, they would have a little bit of social awareness and look over and be like, oh, there's another lady friend, and ask me about my non-existent children. They did. They were like, oh, how old are your kids? First of all, bold assumption. I just said no. Yeah, no, I don't have any. Are you kidding me? They went in so hard, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, no, I'm good. I really am good, you guys. I spent the last decade of my life traveling. I don't really care, honestly. As I'm leaving, they said, call us if you ever decide to be a mom. What?
And let's be real, y'all, we've seen this before. The 1950s had this same exact vibe. The perfect wedding, the perfect home, the perfect husband, the perfect kids. But under all of that was a lot of pressure, okay? There was stigmas and women trapped in situations they couldn't escape. When you mix today's wedding boom with the tradwife and extreme Christian influencer surge, it starts to feel less like romance and more like rebranding patriarchy as this aesthetic. And this gets into my next point on how politics are connected to the aesthetics that are currently trending. There's this saying that gets thrown around a lot in a lot of conservative spaces, and that saying is politics is downstream from culture. And honestly, they're not wrong at all. What we see online, from the aesthetics, the trends, the stuff we double tap without even thinking, it all plants seeds for what people eventually accept as normal. And once something feels normal in culture, it's a lot easier for lawmakers to start writing it into policy. And unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening right now. We've got this cultural boom of young wives and modest fashion and big family content, and at the same time, we're watching some of the harshest rollbacks of women's rights in decades. Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022. There are abortion bans spread across the South and Midwest, and suddenly, women are now being told that they have to carry pregnancies no matter what. Georgia even has that 6-week ban, which is basically a total ban, because most people don't even know they're pregnant that early on. A lot of women find out around 6 weeks when they miss their menstrual cycles. And while all that is happening, people are scrolling on TikTok watching 20-year-olds get married and calling it goals. That's not by accident. Culture softens us up for policy. It's like if enough women online are saying, hey, this is what makes me feel fulfilled, it will become a lot easier for a politician to say, well, let's pass this law that pushes everyone in that same direction. I mean, let's look at what's already on the table. We literally have lawmakers in Texas and Louisiana actually trying to end no-fault divorce. A no-fault divorce allows couples to end their marriage without proving wrongdoing by either spouse, instead using grounds like irreconcilable differences or irretrievable breakdown. This makes the divorce process simpler, faster, and more private. But with removing that means that women, or even men, will now have to find proof as to why they're getting divorced. So say you are getting physically abused in your marriage and you want to leave that marriage, you have to show physical proof that you are being abused in that marriage. And in some cases, you can't prove that you're being abused because abuse isn't always physical, okay? Some abuse is verbal, some abuse is psychological. That law, even considerably wanting to be passed, is straight out of the tradwife handbook. Marriage is forever, husband is the head, and wife submits with no exit. And conservatives like Speaker Mike Johnson openly support it. Then we have Project 2025, which was an alleged, I don't know if it's so much alleged anymore, a massive policy blueprint floating around right now for the next Republican administration. It basically lays out a word where the 1950s family is the only model, which is mom is at home, dad is at work, no birth control, no real safety nets like childcare or Head Start, and marriage defined as strictly one man and one woman. It literally says families with a married mom and dad are, in quote, the foundation of a well-ordered nation. And not so shockingly, over 80% of the people who wrote it worked in the first Trump administration. So when we say politics is downstream from culture, this is the proof right here. The pretty aesthetic we see online, it's not just lifestyle content. It is literally creating the backdrop for real policies that can strip away women's rights. And once those laws are in place, it is hard to get rid of them. Now let's discuss the danger to women when it comes to these aesthetics that are online and how it contributes to politics. So the thing about all of this tradwife content is that on the surface, it looks like an absolute dream. We have the pretty dresses, the well-behaved children, the loving husband, the financially stable life, and a perfectly roasted chicken in the oven every single night. But that's just the image. The reality behind the lifestyle that they're romanticizing is very, very different. Often it's the power imbalance and loss of autonomy that comes with those good old days. When a man is leading everything, he has control of everything. If he's the one with control of the funds, he has the power to tell you what you can and cannot do. A historian by the name of Stephanie Kuntz, I'm almost sure I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. I only saw it written out, so don't come for me. But she points out that the 1950s family was a unique, brief product of its time. She said that it was propped up by government subsidies and a booming post-war economy that allowed many, white, let's be clear, families to live on one solid income. It was also a time before women had access to birth control and before marital sexual assault was a crime. And also when domestic violence and sexual harassment were systemically ignored. Women were largely dependent on husbands with limited legal recourse if their husband was abusive or unfaithful, or if she just didn't like him anymore. Is that really what we want to bring back as a reality? The thing is, when people today are trying to bring back those old school norms, the risks are the exact same as before. And I mean, if women are told to skip college or not bother building careers, they are way more vulnerable if a marriage turns out toxic or if it just fails in general. If no-fault divorce keeps getting chipped away, women get stuck in marriages that are abusive or unsafe. And history shows that kind of dependency leads to higher rates of domestic violence and even homicide. And then there's this whole big family aesthetic that is currently getting pushed online. It looks super cute on Instagram when everyone's matching in beige linen, but when our government isn't offering paid maternity leave, affordable childcare, or real healthcare access, which, let's be honest, conservatives usually fight against, it leads women drowning. They're exhausted, they're stuck in poverty, and with no way out. The tradwife solution to girl boss culture is basically just lean on your husband. But let's be real, what happens if he loses his job? Or worse, just ups and leaves you for another woman, or because he just got bored of you. And now you have nothing in your name. Back in the 1950s, it was assumed men would provide. But the reality, a lot of women got left stranded, having to move back home with their parents. And I feel it's even worse today because today, with how things are, it's not even expected that men are going to be the lifelong breadwinners anymore. It's rare a man in today's economy is able to cover for a woman and himself and their children while living a lavish lifestyle. A lot of those families are living in poverty, which also would ruin a relationship or ruin a marriage because the leading rate to divorce is financial problems. But I want to discuss the clearest and most immediate example of how dangerous this whole mindset is. And that has to do with what has been happening since Roe got overturned in 2022. These anti-abortion bans sweeping across places like Texas, Mississippi, and right here where I live in Georgia have had very devastating effects. We have stories after story of women in medical crisis being turned away or even delayed because doctors are too scared to act and treat them. Abortion care isn't just for elective abortions. It's part of medically necessary, sometimes life-saving care for wanted pregnancies too. Things like a D&C for a miscarriage or terminating a pregnancy to save a mother's life. Doctors are literally waiting until women are at death's door before stepping in because they're afraid of being sued, losing their license, or even being arrested. And unfortunately, we have already seen women die because of this. In Georgia, two young Black mothers by the name of Amber Thurman and Candi Miller lost their lives in 2022. Amber was just 19 weeks pregnant when her water broke, but because of Georgia's 6-week ban, she couldn't get help here. She ended up having to travel out of state for abortion pills, but back home she developed an infection. So she went to the hospital, but doctors waited 20 hours before treating her due to the strict abortion ban in Georgia. By then, she was septic, and unfortunately, she died. Candi's story was just as tragic. And the thing is, these women weren't living in the rosy picture that these tradwife influencers try to paint. These women were already moms trying to make it work, and the laws failed them. Their deaths were later ruled completely preventable. Now, I was honored to attend the vigil for Amber, the 3-year anniversary of her passing, and standing there, seeing her family, I even got to speak to Amber's mother, being surrounded by the community and remembering her life, it made this issue so much more real. Just because it's not currently affecting you doesn't mean it's not affecting other people or that it could potentially affect you. We're talking about mothers, daughters, aunts, nieces, and even friends who should still be here today. Even Vice President Kamala Harris spoke on it when she came to Georgia last year. She said in quote, "Now we know that at least 2 women here in the state of Georgia died because of a Trump-era abortion ban," end quote.
Most recent stories about what happened in Georgia. Many of these Trump abortion bans that make no exception for rape or incest, it's immoral. It's immoral. So imagine if she is a working woman. Understand that the majority of women who seek abortion care are mothers.
And the whole crowd started chanting Amber's name. That moment made it clear. These policies aren't just debates for cable news. They're life and death. Maternal deaths, domestic violence fatalities, all of that gets worse when society prioritizes some ideal version of womanhood over women's actual health and well-being. I mean, the US already has the highest maternal mortality rates of any developed country. And for Black women, it's even higher. States with the harshest abortion bans, well, they have the worst outcome, crazy enough. And what's crazy is that the tradwife community doesn't have an answer to that, besides the Christian ones who will say, just pray about it. Or they'll just deny the numbers or call deaths just tragic exceptions. But the more stories we hear of women almost dying from ectopic pregnancies, or women forced to carry non-viable pregnancies, the harder it is to ignore that the danger is absolutely real. I mean, internationally, we literally can see what could potentially happen in our country if we continue pushing these conservative and modest values at extreme rates. Afghanistan under the Taliban since 2021 is an extreme but illustrative example. The Taliban have systemically erased women from public life. Girls are banned from secondary and university education. Women cannot work in most jobs, and they cannot even leave home without a male guardian and head-to-toe covering. This is called either a burqa or a hijab. Women are banned from parks, from traveling abroad alone, from serving in government, and effectively this is just a gender apartheid. Punishments for disobedience among these women include flogging and stoning. It's giving very much Old Testament. Afghanistan shows the nightmare endgame of traditional women's roles enforced by law and religion to the extreme. Women are reduced to being invisible and voiceless domestic servants of men. Now, while the US is nowhere near that scenario, it demonstrates how quickly rights can be stripped away when an ultra-conservative vision takes power. Even in countries like Iran, which are more developed, strict gender laws wreak havoc. In Iran, since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, women have been forced by law to cover their hair and also dress modestly. In 2022, the world was horrified by the case of Mahsa Amini. Mahsa was a 22-year-old woman arrested by Iran's morality police for allegedly letting some hair show from under her hijab. She was reportedly beaten in custody and later died from head injuries. Her death sparked the largest women-led protest Iran had seen in over a decade. Iranian women quite literally are fighting, and some dying, for the basic right to choose their clothing and move freely without male supervision. Rights that were lost when people imposed their version of traditional modesty and family norms. The slogan of these protests, "Women, Life, Freedom," resonates globally as a reminder that when women's autonomy is crushed, their very lives are often on the line. Now, I know I might sound very extreme to you guys for even bringing up comparisons to places like Afghanistan or Iran, and obviously America is vastly different. I mean, we have institutions. We have decades of women's rights activism that pushed us forward. But here's the thing, the culture always shifts before the laws do. When the idea that a good woman should just be quiet, obedient, and pop out kids for her husband starts getting glamorized, that's what sets the stage for policy changes. Every time a young influencer says, "I'm not a feminist, I just believe women should focus on the home and marriage," it might sound harmless, but it is actually incredibly harmful. It's planting this little seed that maybe feminism went too far, or maybe the old ways were better. And when enough people start buying into that, real consequences follow. So it's not like right away women will suddenly be forced into veils and women can't step outside, but it does look like a culture where not wanting kids or not marrying young is seen as wrong, or when birth control gets harder and harder to access, or when single mothers are punished instead of supported, or when women in abusive marriages lose the ability to leave. Feminism is about choice, okay? Being a homemaker is a choice. Not wanting kids is a choice. Wanting a bunch of kids is a choice. That is all that needs to be pushed. But when we are constantly pushing these conservative, modest, and traditional values, it takes away the choice. Same as a woman wanting to be a CEO, a woman not wanting to get married, a woman wanting to be single, a woman wanting to use her body however she wants. That is a choice, and that is all I'm trying to say. But of course, you guys, I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are your ideas on traditional and more conservative values being pushed on the younger generations, or even on some of the older ones? Let's get the discussion going on in the comments. Like always, my camera keeps on dying, y'all, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up. Remember, we're on the road to 300,000 subscribers, so don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I love and I appreciate you guys so much. Please remember to be respectful in the comments. Everybody's opinions are valid. Everyone's opinions matter, but we all have to be kind, okay? Please be kind, please. I love and I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you all in my very next video. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.
Taking you in this moment,